everyone. Today we got to play
Faiyum.
Yep. So this game is kind of I feel like it's an Egyptian theme, right?
Yes.
Egyptian theme game. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because you like board games, and that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. So, Randy, tell us more about this game.
So this is labeled in Board Game Geek that it was a 2020 release, but I think that must have been other parts of the world because US, I don't believe it arrived here until late 2021.
Okay.
It has got a Board Game Geek rating of 7.6 and a rank of 1351. It is 1 to 5 players. It says the average length is 110 to 140 minutes on Board Game Geek. It's 120 on the box, so that's in the range. Ours went a little longer, but we were playing with.
Oh yeah, we learned the rules, and
people,
yes,
yeah.
So there's some learning, and the first time that's always a little bit longer.
Age 12 and up. Designed by Friedman Fries, who is slowly trying to take over the entire F section of your board game library with his games such as Fearsome Floors, Fauna, Fabled Fruit, Friday, Famiglia, and Power Grid, which apparently has a silent F at the beginning. So just in case you're wondering, Faiyum actually is an oasis-like basin that was built 3,900 years ago, enlarging the Bar Youssef channel of the Nile.
Okay.
So it basically flooded the area and made it swampland that was then ultimately cultivated by the ancient Egyptians into farming land.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're doing today for theme. All right. So now let's talk about quality of pieces. So I like the fact that a lot of the resources are in the shape of the thing it's supposed to represent. Mm-hmm. You have crocodiles, you have grapes, wheat, roses, if you can show the roses. I thought those were pretty, or flowers, I should say. Those are considered wild in the game. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And your stonework. And then you have, now the buildings I think are a little generic in the fact that, you know, these are literally Catan roads.
Squares.
Mason squares for your pyramids.
I don't know why that's a city, but yeah.
It goes on top of a settlement.
Apparently Egyptians built cylindrical towers. I didn't know that, but okay.
Okay. So those didn't make a lot of sense. These are the settlements. And then these are resource gathering locations of some sort. You know, not that one. Those don't make as much sense as these over here do.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there are a lot of bits.
There are a lot of bits. So what was the price point? I don't remember.
Oh, I forgot to say that. It was $59.95 MSRP. You can find it online, like Card House and different places, for $40.99. So you can. I
mean, you do have a lot of bits for that.
Yeah, for $41, it's a lot of stuff.
So I mean, keep that in consideration. There are a lot of bits. Is it more than Catan though? Not really.
Well, in the sense that there is a board.
Your card quality though is the same as Catan. There's no linen
the
finish.
Card quality is not great. These money, if you will, is awful.
I really don't like the money. They're off center, and as far as the printing goes, and not only that,
actually a lot of it cardboard was off center, like the scoring tokens were off center.
Yeah, and plus I just like the pattern itself isn't. For some reason, I just did not like these. I think especially dealing with street money, that money was so good. And then I go to this, and I'm thinking, what? Why?
I'm probably going to give it a 6 just because it does have a board and there are shaped wooden bits. So I will give it a 6.
Okay. I do think that's slightly generous, but I think that's okay because you do get a lot of bits for the price, even though some of the cardboard didn't quite play out the way it should. So we'll be nice. I'll stay with the 6.
Okay.
But, all right, so now we're moving on to theme. So we already learned what that word meant.
Yes.
I can't pronounce words, guys. If you notice, I struggle. The struggle is real. I never learned phonics.
She punts to me without telling me she's going to punt to me when she does it.
Well, it's because I never learned phonics. So when I come across a new word, I don't know how to sound it out. So
I'm probably mispronouncing it completely. It's probably Eddie is how it's pronounced, but it looks like Faiyum, so that's how I'm saying it.
We're going to go with it. So theme-wise, so I think it's interesting that you gave that description because that's very accurate with what's going on. It did feel like a city building, like you're trying to, it had a good feel to it in the sense that you're trying to build a civilization. I like the fact that yes, you're building it together. There's no territory, but at the same time, like, you have to do the most because you're trying to gain prestige or reputation in this process. So I thought it was good, and it was carried out as far as a civilization building game, and I appreciated that. I liked it. What do you think about the theme?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting theme. It's if it weren't for the fact of the mummy, I wouldn't have felt like it was very strong. I love the mummy card, which we'll get to later. But basically, this, you are clearing out crocodiles that have infested the swamplands. I don't know how you're carrying that out. I assume you're sacrificing a whole bunch of people, getting them full, and so they leave. I don't know. Maybe they're hunting them. I don't know what they're doing with them. But the crocodiles.
Hey, there is a card that lets you sacrifice them.
Yes,
to the gods, man.
Yes. So, I mean, they do intrinsically build it into the card play, which is cool. I like that. But the art is very basic. But I guess, then again, it's supposed to represent kind of the ancient Egyptian art, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't remember grapes being on the art walls of the pyramids.
How do you think they got wine?
I'm not saying they didn't have them. I just don't remember ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics ever featuring them.
They had words for everything. I mean, it was a whole written language.
Okay. I'm not an ancient Egyptologist, so I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm just saying, of all the hieroglyphs I've seen, I've never seen grapes represented.
I gotta admit, Egyptian was a phase I went through probably when I was.
Did you walk like an Egyptian?
No, 6th and 7th grade. Well, I bought all these Egyptian books. I read, I studied, I enjoyed learning about mummies and how they were embalming. I don't know if that was great material.
Now I'm worried
for a 7-year-old, but I enjoyed Egyptian.
You know what my future is one day? I'm going to be a Ramatut, I guess.
Well, to be fair, you did say you want to be perfectly preserved, which is embalming.
I said I want to be taxidermied and have a recording box put in that has a sensor. When you walk by me, it would go give a sarcastic comment.
I'm not doing it.
I could still do reviews then.
No.
Oh well. And back to the game. Thematically, I think this, it's intrinsically it's part of the game. It is, the art is not that appealing to me, but I'll give it a 7 because I think it is interesting how they've worked it into the gameplay.
I like the fact that I got to parade around. One of the cards is parade, so basically I got to shout at the rooftops how awesome I was on everyone else's work because I was going on the settlements that you built. And
never remove yourself from the game.
Right, but it was still funny.
Yeah.
I got plenty of victory points doing that. No, I liked it. I think there was a lot of cool, fun cards that made sense and was kind of cool. Did you give it a score?
I said 7.
I'm cool with 7. 7's good. All right, so now let's go to the rule book. Now you would not stop talking about the rule book. So no matter
but not
what,
because of a positive reason.
No. But no matter what, I think he had a lot of fun reading it and talking about it. So that should be a caveat.
First of all, there are 2 rule books. There's the main rule book, which explains the rules, and then there is the glossary. The glossary is very useful. It walks through every card, all the iconography, and tells you what it does. That was very useful. You almost had to have it right by your side the whole game. The gameplay, however, well, even the glossary, we'll get to that in a minute. It's no cover, just straight into the details. You have their nice setup on it, but it took a little while. It's a little confusing how to set up the card deck, which that took a while to figure out. Then the game board and the card explanation, then how to play. This is where things get interesting because I've never seen this approach in a rule book before, ever. I think it was a bad idea, but we'll talk about it.
I think you still had fun with it no matter what.
Before you get into the gameplay, they introduce a fictitious character named Ronald. And everybody in their play group probably has a Ronald, but the fact that they introduced it into the rule book was very confusing because Ronald likes to interrupt while you're reading the rules and ask dumb questions, but he doesn't actually write the question. They just write the writer's or the reader's response to Ronald that sounds more and more agitated as you read the rules. So immediately, the first thing after it being introduced is, they say that Ronald understands the rules and everybody will understand them. Years of experience are 100% proof, at which point, apparently Ronald made some kind of comment that the writer says, "Yes, Ronald, really everybody. Thank you for asking again." And it just goes downhill from there. So I think it was their attempt to kind of mock or take advantage of like Galaxy Truckers humor and the different things that are in the rule books for those. Mm-hmm. But it turned out it just took you out of the rules because you had to keep interrupting. It was like you were being interrupted while you're trying to read the rules over and over and over again. So it made learning this game very difficult, although I got a chuckle as I was reading it. It was distracting. It was very distracting. So I had to read through the how to play section multiple times.
It almost feels like they should have put the Ronald bits on a side column here that made it so you could...
Maybe, but they're interjected literally right in the
Well, that's what I'm saying.
rules.
Maybe if they pulled it out to the side, you could get the humor without getting the interruption.
Well, I guess, but it's almost like a mean humor. It's not fun like the Galaxy Trucker humor. It's a mean-spirited humor because I feel sorry for Ronald by the end of this rulebook. Ronald becomes an actual character you kind of feel bad for. Of course, I was translating every time to Heather when I was reading the rules, but love you, Heather. But yeah, every group has a Ronald. Probably,
but you don't be rude.
You don't be rude to them. And this book got really rude with them, and it was kind of sad. But then the thing was, when we get to the glossary, Ronald's still there in the glossary. Even as you're going through the glossary, Ronald's making comments or getting responded to in comments. It's just kind of an odd choice. So because it was so distracting from the play of it, and not to mention there's cheat sheet cards that are insufficient. The cheat sheet cards have one piece of the options you can do on it. There's no listing of the different actions you can take, which would have been nice to have.
Yeah, so I don't understand. So there's this stuff on this side, iconography. Don't have no idea what this means. They should have used this card
it's two different things, because the top one is a free action you can do when you are actually using a resource. If you don't have that resource, one time you can substitute paying 3 money for it.
Seriously?
Yes. But,
oh, man.
But it's not labeled that's what the case is. But the bottom one is an actual action you have, which is you can use one of your cards and not take the action of it to get 2 money. But it's there's nothing to differentiate with. One is a free action, whereas one is a action that takes your turn. And the actual actions are not listed on the card. So it was really kind of the administration piece is well done. You can understand what it's saying. But as far as the choices of actions, they're not labeled here. So the card becomes less useful than it should have been.
If they would have came on this side and said, okay, during normal turn of fate, you could either play a card to take the action, you could buy a card. And if they had those, then that would have been a lot more useful.
Well, to have first of all, this is all partial iconography. This is complete iconography. Why did you put complete iconography on the cheat card that really wasn't relevant to the actions anyway, which is what's on this side of the card? So, it's like, why don't you have your actions listed over here, and then you could text it and say, you also can do these things, this for free.
I will say, I wasn't a huge fan of the iconography because it took, when you were trying to first explain it, because for me, I'm a huge iconography fan, I like it, but I have to be able to understand it. And when initially looking at it, it is not easily understood. And we had to sit there and be like, all right, read what the description is. Okay, this is what the symbols mean. Okay, go to the next card. What does it say? This is what the symbols mean. That's really not a good way to do it. And sometimes what you thought it meant was not what it meant. And so I think the iconography could have been better. And to use that as part of the explanation on the cheat card was really not
you are going to need to have this glossary available to you all
it's a good thing that they do that, because if not...
The glossary is great. It is well done, except for the interjections of Ronald's comments in there. But, apart from that, it's got every card numbered. They've numbered every card in the game, that's very helpful.
Yes.
And it's critical to the process of the game. As we get to gameplay, you'll understand.
But for people that don't want to constantly go to the rule book, and not have the iconography be spot on.
Well, I think if you play the game enough, you're going to learn it. But it's still, it's not native or intuitive when you look at those cards, what they mean.
That's a good way to phrase it. Yes.
So I'm going to give this probably a 4 because there are good things about it. The glossary is great. The card could have been better.
One side of the card was
the fact that they take you out of the game or the reading of the rules. I literally had to read the rules 3 times And it's not that hard of a game once you get the flow of it going. But even by the time we started playing it, I still didn't feel comfortable until we got a few rounds in that I knew what was the rules were trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's a confusing to learn game from the rule book. But once you actually get to the table and start playing it, it clicks and it makes sense.
Yeah,
really
it might
easily.
be one of those that is better for someone to teach you real quick than to try to mangle through the rules.
Well, yeah, if they got through and successfully made it through the rules, yeah, but don't even try.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about gameplay. So gameplay, you will end up with a starting hand of cards. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can play a card and take its action, okay, and do those things. Or you can buy a card. So there are several points in the game that you'll end up with -1 cost for some of the cards, basically to get them flushed through so that it become a little cheaper. But you can purchase a card.
But there's only 4 available for purchase. The other 4 are just telling you what's coming.
Yeah. So those 4, which I use quite a bit.
Yeah.
Having a little forethought, I planned, and that planning
but
nearly let me win.
But it's kind of interesting because the backfilling doesn't work the way you would think. It doesn't.
Oh,
everything doesn't shift down, and you backfill from the end. When you draw a card, you look at the number on it, and it's always lowest number to highest number. So that number could push everything back up or push it down, depending on what the number is. So, and it's a random shuffle of the blue cards of that. There's blue cards and yellow cards. Also, I want to point out there's no blue player color, probably because of the fact that those have blue on the back. But it's very disappointing because she had purple. No
I know,
blue for me. I had
I'm
to
so
play
happy
white.
with it. Personally, I'm okay with it.
So the way the cards came out was very interesting, and I like that mechanic because I think the lower number ones are less powerful than the higher number ones. So when you got one of those higher ones to come into play, it almost made you want to go grab it right away. But then sometimes they weren't as useful to you strategically from what you had built. So you kind of build your engine with your deck, but the card play is very interesting in this game.
Well, I think deck management is okay. So deck management is very important in this game, and we'll kind of talk about here in a minute. But so you can play a card, you can do this, and then administration phase, right? That's
well, you
three
can play
actions.
a card for 2 different purposes. You can play a card for the action, or as the card showed, you can play the card just to get 2 money. So you can discard a card and get 2 money for the card.
And then the last action is the administration phase, which in that case the card is good for. So administration is basically resetting of your hand, sort of. So you get an income from the number of cards in your hand. So basically, if I still had 2 left, but I didn't want to play these, I'd end up getting less money for not being able to complete these. But this is important because so I'll end up with
you get a base of 3 money.
Subtract the number of cards in your hand. So this is what's left. So I'd have gotten 1 money. And then I get to remove 2 people off the board. I don't have to. I can move 0 to 1. If I do remove them off the board, I get more money for them. So I could pick up 2 or 1 or none and get another 2 money. I don't think we ever not picked up because we were so short cash. Everyone's so short cash. But I do want to point out that it might be advantageous because, like, one of my cards I ended up getting was parading, and if the settlement didn't have a thing, I needed 3 settlements that didn't have a person on it, and then I would end up getting opportunity to buy 6 victory points with 6 money. Now, if you're trying to block me, you may want to put people on settlement, so maybe which ones you picked up mattered. So maybe you're picking more of the farmers up, or maybe you want to trigger your stuff again. So you may be like, okay, well, I need to be able to put a person down on a wheat industrial thing, right? So I'm going to make sure that one's removed. So that is kind of important to note that kind of matters.
The thing is you only get 1 action per turn, so if you remove them, by the time your turn comes back around, they may be already placed again. So you're giving other people the opportunity before you get it. So it's kind of a balancing act. But we had so many places to build by that time it didn't really matter.
That's because I had the 1 card that let me pick up 3 for 6 victory points.
Well, you had that, plus I was building like crazy.
Right, so I was able to pick up 6 real quick, or I picked up 3 to get $6, and so that really put down, so there seemed to be a lot of room for things, but certain stuff did get filled up a little bit. But it is important to notate that and kind of be aware that is part of the strategy. And then you get to buy back additional, okay, so then I get the top 3 cards of my deck, okay? So in this case, I didn't have any extra, but if I ended up playing all of these, I would end up taking the first 3, and I could choose from top down, so it is literally a discard pile. I think that's got some confusion in the fact that when you play them, typically, maybe some card games you like to see what you've played. It is a deck in the sense that this is where it comes in apart. I take the top 3 cards, then I have to decide whether, okay, do I want to pay a money for the farmer? Yes, no. If I do, I pay it. And then that gives me the opportunity of also picking up the 2 roads card that's available to me, and I can choose to pay another coin to pick it up, right?
Yeah, $1 per card. Now, we didn't mention when you take those 2 workers, you get $1 for each worker you take. So if you take none, you get no money. If you take 2, you get 2 money. So it helps. Basically, you get a max of 5 money contributed to your cause, and then you can use that to buy the cards back. If you had a lot of cards as you get later in the game, it's going to cost you a lot of money to buy them all back.
See, I had a lot of cards that gave me money, but I needed to buy all my cards back. So I ended up, money was still very tight because yes, by the time I administered, I did have money, but then I had to buy all back my cards because I liked my deck. My deck was getting good. All right. So then, part of the administration phase, then I'm going to, depending on player count, remove 2 cards in the current mark or replace 1. So basically, I'm going to choose which one I want to discard. I can choose to get rid of any of these cards. And then I draw another one to replace it. And I can do that 1 if it's 4 to 5 player or 2 if it's 2 to 3 player.
Yeah, and you reset the discounts because when you buy one of the cards that has a discount token, you remove it from the board and then you re-backfill, but you don't put the token back. So whenever someone does the administration phase, the lowest 4 cards on the board all get one of those discount tokens put back on them.
So, and then you play, so the end of game's a little tricky in the fact that you wait till 4 disasters come up, then actually it's a 5th disaster.
No, it's only 4.
Oh, it's 4. When the 4 disasters finally come up and are in the awaiting pile because they have the highest numbers, then you can no more administer. You just end up taking the cards that you can. And then when all the cards are removed, then it's end of game. And you can keep going until you basically have to administer. And then when you administer, you're done. Yeah.
So the in-game deck is set up with at the beginning, and this is the confusing part because you get these yellow cards. There's different player counts have different yellow cards. So you have to remove all the ones that are not your player count, and you'll end up with 4 of the game end triggering cards. Then there's 4 that are always in play of yellow cards as well that are late game cards but not ending. And then you have 4 from the standard deck that are shuffled all together to make that in-game pool. So that card deck is set separate, or you could put it at the bottom of the deck. It doesn't matter a whole lot as long as you know when those 4 disasters come out, you can no longer draw from that deck again. So we just, for space reasons, put it on the one deck on top of the other. It's kind of preference. The book, it tells you to keep them separate. I don't see a point.
Maybe it kind of give you a warning on when the game's ending.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, you would be able to see the deck burn out, and you'd have maybe a card or 2 warning before. A yellow card coming up to me was enough warning.
Right, but I'm just saying you might want to. It might be triggering. So there's a couple. So this game had a lot of interesting strategies to it, and we've already talked about some of them about where your people are and about pulling them, and also about this is a hand management game. When first initially described, I wouldn't have thought that, but it heavily is. Yeah. Because I planned significantly on what card I was taking and how I was managing my hand, and I think I ended up with a pretty good flow through. Yeah. But you didn't give me enough time.
What's interesting is it looks like an area control game. If you look at the board, it looks like.
I'm so glad it's not.
But it's not. Everything that's built is common. Nobody owns anything. So when you build something, when you put something on the board, it's available for others to use as well.
I liked that.
Yeah, I did too. They've got the crocodiles are really, it looks like they're intimidating, but the reason they're there is to actually clear them out. And when you clear them out, you get a coin as a bonus. So you can play one of your farmers cards will allow you to remove the crocodile. You get $1 for that. So they're basically just starters to get you money early in the game. And I like that too. I really enjoyed this game a lot more than I expected to. I mean,
it was a pleasant surprise. There was a lot of strategy in it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to be as robust as it was, but it was. It was still fun and easy to manage. I just wish the iconography was a little clearer.
Now, and the other thing is the pieces are separated the way they are for a reason. All the stuff on this side is basically unlimited, even though there's very few of them, which that was my one grievance about it, was that it just didn't feel like there was enough of these, and you could run out of these easily.
But we never did.
But it said substitute pieces. Well, we only had 4 players. If we had 5, it could have.
Oh, 5 players would have been a little.
But yeah, if you run out, substitute something. So if you happen to have something that's a substitute for little wooden grapes, that's great. Or a little flower.
We do.
I don't have flowers.
Oh.
And I don't have grapes. I have other types of food.
Are you sure you don't have grapes?
Nope, don't have grapes.
You could have used wine bottles.
I have wheat. I have stone. I have fish. I don't have...
We could have used some wine bottles.
I have wine bottles. Yes, I could use those.
That
I
would
don't
have
have
been more
any
fun
flowers, though. No flowers. There should have been more of these, I think. It's very limiting. Now, this side is intentionally limiting.
But I do want to point out we did never run out.
Not of these, no. But with these, it's intended that you're going to run out of them. And that took me a while to figure out, because my whole strategy was about building, which worked great. I was taking an early lead. I was running away with the game.
And I was building my deck while you were doing that.
My engine stalled because those buildings were running out. And I saw it early enough that I was able to adapt, but I was like, oh crud, my entire deck is geared around building. I had no money source other than one card that gave me $3, and I had no way of getting points without buildings, no victory points scoring things. So I had to quickly try to figure out how to get cards, which cost money, by the way, and I had no money source, and I had to creatively adapt to the situation. There happened to be a card that came out that saved me, that lets you take a card for a discounted rate of $2 no matter where it fell in the market, and that saved me, because otherwise I would have been hosed. And then everybody kept burning all the money sources on me, so I couldn't get money back. So, yeah, that was a real problem. And that was fun, because it was like, okay, I got to find a way to creatively get points, because my scoring is completely done now.
Well, I enjoyed actually the fact that you can kind of pre-see the market, because it was like when a certain card came, it was like, I have to have that one. Like, I know I'm going to have it. And as soon as it hit that barrier, it had given me enough time to save that money. I was able to immediately buy it. And I set up myself a really good hand, but it took me a while to get there. If I would have had another round or two, I probably would have won. And I liked, there was a tense moment when you saw what was going on. You're like, I'm ending the game. And I was like, no, don't end it. I need a little more time.
Because every time you administer, you're burning one of those cards, which is burning the timer. So I had to keep administering like rapidly. And plus you got your cards back faster.
Well, plus you got money that way too.
Well, it was the only way to get because I had one card that generated money, and they were running out, because it was based upon placing settlements, which is a limited resource. And the settlements were burning out. The only way I could get money was playing a settlement. And after that, I was out of luck. I was just discard a card for 2 money every turn to get money. And that would have taken a lot of turns. So, yeah, I was really in a bind. Plus, I saw you were coming back on, you were catching up with me on score, and my engine was stalling. So I had to keep burning cards as quickly as possible to get them out of there. And Heather was picking out cards that were, like, causing the money to go away for me, so I couldn't catch you. And then,
I was okay with it.
But the interesting thing is you can burn cards that are up here in the waiting area, and that can cause people grief if they're planning on that card coming up and it goes away before. Yeah,
I would have beaten you with the stick if you had gotten rid of some of my cards that I wanted. No, but I think it was a lot of fun. I think there was a lot of strategy. I really did enjoy it. What would you score it, though? Now that we've talked about it, there's a lot of strategy involved. What's the
gameplay-wise, I love this game. I'm probably going to give it a 9.
Ooh, you really liked it.
I did. I love the fact that there wasn't one strategy to win. It was lots of different ways.
Right, because you were building, and I was close behind you, but I was more focused around what my deck was doing. Yeah.
And the fact that you have to adapt your deck. And the way the deck plays is so interesting. I love that aspect of it. It was like, okay, I'm playing a card, but I don't get all my cards back.
Well, the thing I liked is there wasn't a lot of repeat cards. Like you had one that lets you gain wheat. There was when you placed a person on an industrial spot, another one that did grapes, but that was it. There was only one wheat card that did that. There was only one grape. There was only one parade. There was only one mummy. There was every card is different. So no matter what, your deck's going to be different every time. And I'm going to be very interested to see the playability, but everyone's hand, besides your starter cards, everyone's hands is very, very different. And if you don't really remember what their cards were, like you're not sure what they're doing or how they're getting points, and so you have to be careful, because you want to get more than they do.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm gonna end up, I think the variability is going to be great on this one.
And the mummy card, because I talked about that earlier, was really cool because you built pyramids on the game. That's one of the things that you can build. So the mummy takes advantage of those pyramids, which I thought was really cool. So you place the mummy on one of the pyramids of your choice, and you get victory points. You can sell any of your resources for 1 victory point each, up to 10. And you get a victory point for each stone in the pyramid that you chose. So, it was really cool. It's like, oh, this is my mummy's pyramid. And it comes out here and you get the, I scored I didn't have 10 resources at the time because I had some other ways of getting 2 victory points for some of those resources. But I ended up with 7 resources I sold and 5 victory points from the temple, or the pyramid. So I ended up getting 12 points from that mummy for the one play, which really boosted my score, and I wouldn't have won if it weren't for that mummy.
Yeah, I know. I was a really big fan of that mummy.
So I loved him. He was awesome. And he's thematic. I mean, it made sense.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it too. So you gave it a 9. I feel like that this is really a good, solid game. I really did enjoy it. I'm probably going to give this probably a 9 too. I think there's a lot of variability. I really liked it. It was very strategic. I had to sit there and think about how I was going to manage it. It's one of the... I actually... So a lot of times when we do some deck management, I'm not a huge fan of them because it seems just a little overwhelming because there's so many cards. This I liked because they're so unique and knowing what... I really liked that.
Plus, I mean, the thing is I was used to Fabled Fruit. That was the game that I knew that we played for
I don't remember it.
And it was a very light deck builder. It was a campaign when you built the cards, and the cards that came out stayed for the next time you played. And it was very simplistic, but we liked the fact that we didn't know what was going to come next time we played. So it was kind of an exploration game. And I was expecting it to be light like that, but then when we got it out, it's like, well, this looks like area control. So I was thinking it was going to be that, but it turned out it was nothing like either of that.
I am very happy.
Now, if I had seen that he made Power Grid, then I might have actually related more to that, because this definitely, I think, has some commonalities with Power Grid. But, I think this was a unique game, and I really liked everything about it. It was just a fun game to play. Everybody at the table had a blast playing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast today. This game turned out fantastic. I definitely think you should guys look into it. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.